It gives me great pleasure to be the person that was given the honor to introduce our next speaker, Senator John Cornyn. Senator Cornyn is serving his second term, representing Texas in the United States Senate, where he serves on the Senate Judiciary and Finance Committees. In 2012, Senate Republicans elected him to serve as Minority Whip for the 113th Congress. Prior to his election to the Senate, Senator Cornyn served in Texas as a district judge. I remember that. He served as a member of the Texas Supreme Court. I remember that. And he served as Texas Attorney General with great honor and distinction. In the Senate, Senator John Cornyn is one of the strongest voices for energy independence and the work that those of us gathered today are doing. He has seen here in Texas firsthand what can happen when the government encourages, not hinders, the work of domestic producers, and the free market is allowed to make the most of our natural resources, which in turn creates jobs, generates economic revenue, and makes the nation less dependent on foreign sources of energy. He understands that economic development and energy development go hand in hand, and he continues to fight and to see that Washington takes its cues from the pro-growth environment here in Texas and not the other way around. We are also joined today by Senator Cornyn's wife, Sandy, his wife of 34 years. We're so pleased to have you here today. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Senator John Cornyn.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Janice, for that very nice introduction. And it's almost 35 years now in November. Well, it's great to be here to celebrate the 5th anniversary of this conference and to congratulate the Economic Alliance and its members for the great job you've done, which really is a mind-blowing thing to behold in terms of job creation, promoting innovation, and helping this region just become the vital economic engine that it is. I bet a lot of the challenges that you have to confront, and I talked to a couple of the mayors on the way in, there are some challenges associated with the kind of explosive growth and the dynamism that we see happening in this region, but there are problems that I bet other mayors, other civic leaders across the country would just love to have. But I also want to recognize the 100th birthday of the Houston Ship Channel, which was opened by Woodrow Wilson in November of 1914. We all know how important the ship channel is to the economics of Houston and this region. And as long as I'm recognizing other anniversaries, might as well recognize the fact that it's the centennial of the commissioning of the USS Texas, which is nearby at the San Jacinto battleground as well. The Texas served in both world wars and is the last remaining dreadnought, which is a big gun battleship in existence. It's good to know that a century later we continue to do things big in Texas, and that's just another example. But over the last 100 years, Houston has been transformed into a true global city. I don't know any other city in Texas or really in the country that represents a global city in the same way that, that Houston does. And obviously it's a huge economic powerhouse, providing an opportunity for anybody and everybody who wants to work hard and who's determined to succeed, to give them that pathway to success and to the American dream. It's largely a result of what's happening in the cities and businesses that the Alliance represents. Your companies, your workers, and your productivity have helped make this region a symbol of economic dynamism, entrepreneurial energy, and upward mobility. And most recently, this area has become a symbol of the ongoing renaissance of American oil and gas production, which you know very, very well. In recent City Journal article noted that Houston's economic success over the past 20 years, and most remarkably, since the Great Recession and the weak national recovery, rivals the performance of any large metropolitan area in the United States. And that's not an exaggeration, as you know. They went on to note that Houston now has among the highest, if not the highest, standard of living of any large city in the United States. According to one estimate, Houston will enjoy the highest growth in new households of any major city between 2014 and 2017. Not surprisingly, this region has also become a magnet for engineers, other highly skilled workers, along with immigrants and middle-class families, providing them the opportunities they seek and want and need. And of course, they come from all backgrounds, which is part of our being a global city. The newcomers have different stories, as you might imagine. They have different jobs and they have different interests, but they all seem to agree on one thing, and that is the American dream is still alive and well in Houston, Texas, and in Greater Houston. That's a great thing and a precious thing to nurture and preserve. Of course, what's been so unique is this region's role in the U.S. energy revolution, something that Washington, D.C. simply does not appreciate. They still think the country can operate on wind turbines and solar panels, which is a great thing. I'm not knocking it, but it's not the complete answer. And when the president says he's for an all-of-the-above energy policy, we are in Texas for an all-of-the-above energy policy, not just giving lip service to those words. But between 2008 and 2013, America suffered through a financial crisis, as you know, a deep recession, and the longest period of high unemployment since the Great Depression. And yet, over that same period, total U.S. production of crude oil increased by 50%. Between 2007 and 2012, America's production of shale oil increased 18-fold, while our production of shale gas grew by more than 50%. The numbers from here in Texas are particularly remarkable. Back in May, daily oil production averaged more than 3 million barrels, making our state not only the biggest oil producer in America, but one of the biggest oil producers in the whole world. And I think I read recently that between what's happening in the Bakken Shale in North Dakota, what's happening in Texas and around the country with unconventional oil and gas recovery, that we now produce more oil than Saudi Arabia, which is a good thing. Indeed, we do now produce more oil each month than Venezuela or Brazil, which is just an extraordinary accomplishment. Whenever I think about America's energy boom, I'm reminded of a famous quote by the 19th century German Chancellor Otto Bismarck, who reportedly said that God has a special providence for fools, drunks, and the United States of America. And it certainly seems that way, that we are blessed beyond our comprehension. At the same time, the energy boom is not just a matter of good luck. It also reflects major technological advances, as you are well aware, which epitomize the type of innovation that has fueled productivity gains and rising living standards throughout American history. I got a first-hand look at some of the modern oil and gas technology just a few years ago with my friend Pete Olson, Congressman Pete Olson. We flew out on the helicopter, which seemed like we'd never land on that drilling rig. Pete visiting the Noble Corporation's Danny Atkins drilling rig that sits in 9,000 feet of water out in the Gulf of Mexico. It was like going to NASA. The technology was just so phenomenal, but an amazing experience. Economists have said that America's 21st century energy revolution is a true game changer. Now, I know people use that phrase a lot, and usually when it doesn't mean what this means, but it is a true game changer, both for the U.S. economy and for the larger global economy as well. In fact, one economist who served as chief White House economist in the Clinton administration has written that shale extraction represents one of the most important developments for the economy in the last 60 years. The shale revolution has been vital to U.S. economic growth over the past decade, and it may become even more vital in the decades ahead. By one study, by 2035, unconventional oil and gas resources alone will be supporting close to 3.5 million jobs and making $475 billion in value-added contributions to our gross domestic product. Given all that, U.S. policymakers, you would think, would be doing everything in our capacity to help advance the U.S.'s economic interests and promote this vital engine of our economic recovery and economic growth. Because we know here in Texas it creates jobs and it lowers energy costs for consumers. And it persuades a lot of manufacturing and other folks to come back on shore rather than keep their operations offshore and keep that economic growth and job creation there. In a broader sense, we should embrace an energy policy that is pro-growth, pro-jobs, and pro-consumer. Those are not inconsistent. An energy policy that serves both our economic interests and our strategic interests as well. You know, since Winston Churchill decided to change the Royal Navy from coal to oil and dramatically changed the importance of oil-producing regions of the world like the Middle East, we know all too well how energy also impacts the geopolitics and our strategic interests and our national security as well. But if we really had a pro-growth, pro-jobs, and pro-consumer energy policy, that would mean stopping harmful regulations that don't pass a simple cost-benefit test. It means streamlining the overall Washington regulatory process. It means approving job-creating projects like the Keystone XL pipeline. You know, I've told folks who expressed some concern about the Keystone XL pipeline, I said, just Google or Bing or whatever your search engine is, oil and gas pipelines. And then you'll see on your computer screen, this looks like a spaghetti bowl of oil and gas pipelines all across the country which safely operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and which move oil and gas safely around the country. And then I think that will help allay some of your concerns about the Keystone XL pipeline and see why it's so absolutely vital to our country. We would also accelerate natural gas exports. Remember, just a few years ago, we were talking about peak oil and gas, and we had these terminals which were designed to import natural gas. Now we've had to turn them around and arrange for them to export natural gas because we have it in such plentiful supply. But that means trading and the benefits of new customers around the world for our products produced here in America. And it means giving states, if we were smart about it, we would give states greater control over their own energy production decisions on federal lands within their borders. Consider these figures. Between 2007 and 2012, natural gas production on federal lands actually declined, went down by 33%. While on private lands, natural gas production increased, total natural gas production increased by 20%. So it's not because of anything the federal government has done which has enhanced the production of natural gas, because natural gas production on federal lands, because of the red tape and bureaucracy, has gone down by 33%. While overall, nationwide, on private lands, primarily it's gone up so dramatically. So we understand here in Texas something that Washington would do well to learn, and that is a U.S. energy policy is absolutely a critical part of U.S. economic policy. We understand that maximizing domestic energy production will make American jobs, increase the number of American jobs. It'll hold down energy prices for consumers, and as I said earlier, will help make our country safer the more self-sufficient we are in North America on our own energy supply. Texans understand that amid the weakest economic recovery since the Great Depression, Washington needs to embrace a comprehensive agenda for economic growth, and you cannot have a comprehensive agenda for economic growth without promoting our domestic energy production and supply. It's just that simple. It's too important. All too often on Capitol Hill, folks who really just aren't very well informed, or they're either not well informed or willfully ignorant, I can't tell which sometimes, they're making it harder for businesses to create jobs. You know, that's the great key that our leadership here in Texas and the industry in Texas has discovered, is that if you want more jobs, you have to make it easier to do business and invest and create jobs. Washington, D.C., it seems like they believe just the opposite. You can continue to make it harder by over-regulation, over-taxation, and just outright negative policies, and still expect productivity and growth to occur. It just doesn't work that way. I think it's a matter of simple physics. With the labor force participation at low rates, you know, the unemployment rate's actually, you know, been ticking down a little bit nationally. But the really scary part is the Bureau of Labor Statistics issues this figure on a regular basis called the labor participation rate. It's the percentage of Americans who are actually in the workforce. And the more that drop out of the workforce, it actually makes the unemployment rate look a little bit lower because fewer people are seeking jobs. But it is a tragedy in and of itself that so many Americans have simply given up looking for work that our labor participation rate is at the lowest rate for 30 years. A comprehensive growth agenda would include a broad mix of pro-growth tax and regulatory reforms that would encourage work, hiring, and investment. They would also include education and training programs designed to improve the skills of American workers and give them the tools they need to compete and succeed in the global economy. And I've had the great pleasure of seeing for myself some of the great work that many of you in this room are doing together with local leaders here in the greater Houston area. Back in January, the Alliance helped arrange a workforce development event right across the street at San Jacinto College. That event gave me the opportunity to chat with some real live human beings, some Texans who benefited from some of the training programs that the Alliance and local leaders have made available to them. For example, I met an Iraqi war veteran, Jordan Chauvet, who went back to school with the help of the Hazelwood Act. This is a law that provides tuition benefits to veterans and their families, as many of you know. His goal was to learn the skills that would allow him to make a better life for his wife and children, and he recently graduated from San Jacinto and now works at an engineering and construction company based in LaPorte. I also met a young woman, Deanna Harper, who received a cosmetology degree from San Jacinto, but then went back to school to get a degree in process technology. She's a wife and a mother, and now she's earning a six-figure salary working in the energy industry. What a great story that is. When I was in Laredo recently, I had a chance, Sandy and I had a chance to go to a 9th grade science class at United High School, where, you know, they had the table of periodic elements on the wall, and I never knew really what that meant when I was in high school. But they actually were able to apply their science curriculum to and connect it with jobs that these youngsters would be eligible to perform if they acquired the skills necessary to work in the area of the energy area in the Eagle Ford Shale region. So the high schools and others are realizing that you can create practical lessons for 9th graders on why learning science is important to acquire those skills that are going to be so important for them to get jobs and enter the middle class. So like so many Texans, these people like Deanna, like Jordan, and these students from United High School in Laredo, Texas, they benefited from the recent surge of private investment into petrochemicals and manufacturing, because I know a lot of the curricula is created in conjunction with industry as well. The skills and training they received prepared them not just for a good job, but for an upwardly mobile career in a fast-growing industry that is hungry for talented workers. And I've seen this dynamic time and time again on my visits to other Texas colleges, such as Victoria College, Lamar Institute of Technology in Beaumont, and others, where welders and others who can learn how these skills are able to earn six-figure incomes and better, and be on a pathway toward their American dream. And I know that they're grateful, and I'm enormously grateful for the great work and the great opportunities that are being provided. At a time of massive unemployment and stagnant wages, we should be doing everything possible to make sure that good jobs and stable careers are available to all Americans, all Americans. And that's what the Alliance has been doing, and I've been honored to play a small part in helping to promote and to raise some of the visibility to your good work. So thanks again for having me here today, and thanks again for all you've done to help make the Houston area such a powerful symbol of economic opportunity and broad-based prosperity. Thank you, and God bless.